We began with a very long improvisation that TRISHA directed um, about moving sculpture, and it's actually where the title of the piece comes from. She was giving us directions, three other dancers, and she would form this beautiful uh, design with her body, and she would ask someone to like pick her up or reset her. And at one point, she said, I'm going to set me up as a sculpture now, and I'm going to toss my arms. And if you catch them, they're yours. And if you don't, I'll just keep trying. And actually, yeah, so she said many directions that related to sequences of actions. We worked with the initial improvisations that she was moving in the beginning, and dancers also used a method of passing material to another. So you would have one dancer start a phrase, and then they would build a little bit of material and then pass it to the next. So the impulse keeps changing. It becomes very multi-directional, which is actually, we felt very close to Trisha's own style of moving. So that was very exciting to find that. And we also used a drawing of Trisha's to generate phrase material. And we looked at a drawing with her one day, and she said, I curled, curved, and backed up here. And the dancers were like, oh, that's so beautiful. That's something that we would love to work with, just these three words. And the opening of the piece starts just, you can see it very clearly. The dancers, they take one step back and they curve their pelvis around, and then they curl their wrists, and they take two steps again back in space, and they worked and worked and worked with these three words, inventing such beautiful movement, and it just kept generating, and the phrase is actually almost 9 minutes long. So. It's very interesting how something begins and then what it becomes on stage in the final stages. And the first thing that we did after exploring sculpture was two dancers made a very long phrase called the soft phrase, and it was built with the idea of interrupting or aberrating. So they would move together and one dancer would jump ahead and then the next would catch up. And that was originally a very long continual phrase. And then like each section that you see is somehow a study of the ideas of sculpture, calligraphy, interruption, but they're kind of unique to themselves. And what we did was we took this very long soft phrase and we took sections of it, and then it would lead into a quartet, and then it might return to the duet, and then it might lead into the trio. So the very long phrase became the connective fiber of the sections. In the studio, I don't think that we focused on recreating, a relationship to the past choreography consciously. As with every piece of Trisha's, we always originate new movement, but I think that there are always things that hold true. Like her movement is multi-directional. It's incredibly designed. I know she loves to draw with her body. So there are certain natural or instinctive things that I think are always going to be present, even though the steps themselves are completely different from any other piece before. And I think it's kind of beautiful that you see, it sounds almost like a history that you see, which is really lovely. They were not made together from the start, so they're not connected in the way that the dancing is connected to the rameau, for example. It's definitely two entities existing, coexisting. I do think, though, one thing that's very interesting is that Alvin did actually, because we're in different countries and working on we're not in the same studio together, and Trisha and Alvin talk by phone, or we were sending videos, and he was actually really watching the videos and starting to send in music. Well, I know that Trisha has worked with Alvin in the past on 4MG the movie, and that they have a very good relationship, and I think that it was just a partnership they wanted to form, and there was definitely a request for the fans to actually be the music in a sense in the beginning. He wanted just the sound of the fans, and then there's a beautiful kind of oscillating sound that makes a transition between the sound into the piano, and that's Alvin's magical world. They're an amazing group of dancers. I think that they're very gifted individually, and I think that they are very gifted as a group. They work in tandem with each other very, very easily. And that, I think, relates back to how I was saying at one point we were working with the idea of passing. A dancer moves forward 3 moves, and then they pass it to the next. And so this very strong connection in this group actually starts with the origin of the phrase itself. And they really know how to play with each other once a phrase is developed, and you take a phrase to form, and Trisha gives them an instruction, and they just fly with it. And then Trisha's like, oh, and it's always great when she gives them an idea and they just go into it without breaking it down or thinking about it. They just take the idea, the words, the image, and the instinct, and they just go with it. And then it's never easy to recreate it, but we do it successfully. And so it is quite complex, but we work very hard. We rehearse a lot. And so it becomes like a second nature. So when they're performing, I don't think it's as complex as it may seem. I think he actually really had the concept of the piece from the start. Like, I think he was very clear that he wanted to work with the industrial fans from the start, even possibly before we started moving. The wind. I'm not sure if it has a literal part. I know that we started knowing that Bert Barr wanted to have these huge industrial fans in the stage. We knew that we would have 2 passageways. We knew that he wanted the fans to literally blow the costumes off, and that they would eventually pare down to their bathing suits. And it's not very easy to, it's not practical to rehearse with industrial fans. So we only had the concept in our minds until much later, closer to the premiere, where we came into a big theater and we had the big fans going. It's not something to carry around New York. So. Honestly, when I see the piece, I think that it has a beautiful momentum, that it has a incredibly soft build, and I think that each section has its own terrain, so to speak, landscape, and to some degree, I see a strong relationship to TRISHA as a visual artist, as a dancer, as a prolific creator. So I like the fact that it kind of, you have a journey in the piece, and it builds very slowly, and there's a lot to take in the piece, I think.